Do you want to stay more focused on the right goals in your life, or even just figure out what the right goals are for you? Do you want clarity? Do you want better work-life balance? Well, you're in the right place. Welcome to Success Through Failure.
Welcome to the Success Through Failure podcast, the show that reveals failure as your path to success. You'll listen to intriguing interviews with some of the most successful people on the planet and learn how their failures became a launchpad for success and how yours can too. Here's your host, former Division I All-American wrestler, former Division I head coach, speaker, and personal coach, Jim Harsha.
Welcome to another episode of Success Through Failure. Today I bring you Todd Durkin. When I was a Division I All-American athlete, I was hyper-focused and I was able to take consistent action that allowed me to be one of the best in the country at what I did. Well, for years after I was done competing, I just struggled to stay focused on my goals day in and day out. I was easily distracted, so I wasn't able to stay consistent, the kind of consistency that you need to have to achieve goals that are meaningful to you. It was discouraging for me. I felt like I was just slipping kind of into mediocrity. Then, after interviewing some of the highest performers in the world, Olympians, CEOs, billionaires, best-selling authors, I discovered how they do it. I discovered 18 powerful and sometimes weird tactics that they use to stay focused at work, focused on the right things while also living a balanced life. And if you start using probably just 3 of these today, you're going to get more done in the next 8 hours. I promise. This is not tomorrow, not next week. These will work today. I guarantee it. It's like magic, but they're real world solutions to it people like you and me want. The ability to stay focused, avoid distraction, and be consistent. I use at least 4 of them every day and have used all of them at some point. And now I'm able to stay focused while I'm at work and get probably 50 to 100% more done each day. I'm more present when I'm home with my wife and 4 kids. And the result is I have a stronger relationship with my family. And I'm still able to achieve incredible goals like being selected to give a TEDx talk at one of the biggest TED events in the world, like launching a podcast and talking to A-list guests and running a half marathon, all of this while having a full-time job that includes frequent travel, working nights and weekends, and all that good stuff. So you're going to find solutions on this list that are going to surprise you. Grab your copy of the 18 Tactics to Staying Focused at Work. Just go to jimharshajr.com/focus. That's jimharshajr.com/focus. Todd is an internationally recognized fitness trainer, coach, author, and speaker who works with some of the highest level athletes in the NFL, Major League Baseball, MMA, and the Olympics, including guys like Drew Brees, Rodgers, Carson Palmer, and Darren Sproles. Todd was a featured trainer on NBC STRONG last year, produced by Sylvester Stallone, and he owns Fitness Quest 10 in San Diego. It's an award-winning gym that's been named a top 10 gym in the United States 5 years in a row by Men's Health. Todd is the lead training advisor for Under Armour and has been voted a top 100 most influential people in health and fitness, along with people like Tony Robbins, Dr. Oz, and Michelle Obama. Some of those names sound familiar. His newest book, The Wow Book, 52 Ways to Motivate Your Mind, Inspire Your Soul, and Create Wow in Your Life, is an Amazon bestseller. Check it out. As always, for the listeners, if you don't have time to get to listen to this entire episode, or if you hear something you like, get your hands on the action plan. Just go to jimharshajr.com/action and get all the tidbits and resources from this episode, as well as all the other episodes. Todd, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Jim. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great to have you on. So let's just dive right in. Tell us about your background and how you got to where you are right now.
All right, that's a fair question. I'll keep it short and sweet. What I do now, Jim, is I change lives, and I've got a gym here in San Diego called Fitness Quest 10, and we have the awesome opportunity every day to change lives from kids on up to grandmas and grandpas to my niche, which is training pro athletes. And we've got a team of 38 trainers and Pilates instructors, massage therapists, and folks that are in the health, fitness, and chiropractic world. And then we've got a clientele from all different walks. And I've had my business for 17 years, and we've grown from a one-man show. I started Fitness Quest 10 with no clients, no money, and no business plan. And then through a lot of hard work, blood, sweat, tears, and even failure, we've grown and grown and grown. And now I have the opportunity to travel the world and speak and write books and train people and do my best to try to make a difference in the world. I'm a guy what's called impact, and I love to create impact in people's lives and help get people's minds right. So that's what I do, and my background has certainly led me to where I'm at today.
Interesting. So there are a lot of good trainers out there, right? There are a lot of, I always say talent is a dime a dozen. There's a lot of talented people out there. There's probably a lot of talented people similar to you out there, but not all of them, most of them, in fact, will never reach your level. I read off all the a bunch of accolades. There's a ton more. If anybody goes to his website, todddurkin.com, you'll see plenty more accolades. But why did it happen for you, Todd? I mean, why did it happen for you and not others? I mean, what separated you to get yourself to this level?
I think there's several things. I think one is persistence. It's easy when you're in the everyday toil and you're working your tail off because of a dream that you have, just to sometimes you face a setback or an adversity and just to say, you know what, this isn't meant to be. But maybe through stubbornness or through hard-headedness, I like to call it my purpose, that I've always been purpose-driven. And knowing that my purpose in life is to motivate and inspire people, it really is just through a lot of hard work. And just never giving up. I have the dream, which I feel like I'm just getting started, is to transform the universe into positivity and to be a difference maker in people's lives every single day. And man, Jim, I've had a lot of setbacks along the way, from my days as an athlete growing up all the way through high school and college and professional athletics into now. But I think, man, one thing that you got to do is stay disciplined and focused on where you want to go and who you want to be. And when you do that, good things happen. So I think some of the mindset aspect is what's allowed me to get to where I'm at today and allows me to continue to be successful. It's, that mentality of get your mind right, get your mind right.
I want to go deeper onto that if we can, because we hear people say, we hear people talk about persistence a lot, persistence, hard work. And so for the listeners who are sitting there going, well, I'm working hard and but I have these are the reasons why I can't succeed. I mean, did you have those moments? I mean, it's easy to sit there and just go, yeah, I worked really hard. I was persistent, but that doesn't take us to that moment in time where it's like 2 a.m. and you're sitting there in your office or your home and, sending out emails or doing research were there dark moments? Were there hard moments? Were there moments where you're just like, man, I don't know if this is going to work?
Right. No doubt about it. As a matter of fact, when I opened up my business, I was scared as heck. I had no money, as I said. I would be driving my beat up old 1987 Volvo with the velour hanging down with like my gas tank on empty, showing up to this studio gym that I had created where I negotiated 3 months rent free, and I had no clients. And I was like, how am I going to do this? Like I was really in a scared place, but I've also was really empowered because it was like, you're either going to sink or swim. And I remember talking to myself every day coming up this road here as I come up and approach Fitness Quest 10 and driving up Pomerado Road and saying, you're not going to fail today. Do not fail. Do not fail. Do not fail. And I probably use different language today than I did then. But my whole thing was, coming from an athletic world, is, man, I'm not going to lose today. I got to do something today to try to win the day. If I can get one client today, that could be the turnaround that's going to help me succeed in my business. So I had months and months of this time that were unnerving. I had like anxiety. It was scary. It was scary getting started when you have nothing. And I think ultimately it takes a lot of risk and courage. And fortunately, I was able to get through that tough time getting started.
Yeah. So do you? So was everything from that point on? Was it smooth sailing? So you get through this sort of short time. You got you negotiated. That's pretty cool. So you negotiated 3 months rent free. You had no clients, and you just kind of grinded this thing out, and you made it happen one by one. I mean, from that point forward, was it smooth sailing, easy, kind of cruise control?
Oh, I wish it was, but as any high performer would do, I'm always looking for growth. So, my first focus was going to be on, hey, how can I get my schedule booked? And within about 4 to 5 months, now all of a sudden I had 40 clients I was working with. And my next trouble was, oh my gosh, I'm too busy. I have to grow. So I started to bring on employees. Well, then it's a new set of problems and challenges because I wasn't systemizing my business. Despite one of my mentors saying, Todd, you have to systemize your business like you're going to build 500 more. And I was like, I don't want 500 more. I just want to be successful in one. He said, it doesn't matter. You have to build it like you're going to build 500. And because I was young and didn't heed his advice, it was hard. The leadership lessons I learned early on in my career certainly impacted me as to, how I treat people today, who I am, and how I run my company now, built on a culture of happiness and a positive experience and an energy that is definitely unique. Those are all growing pains that I learned early in my career. And those are just a few, but now with a team of 38 employees and multiple different hats and roles that I wear, including the family side of things, there's always things that pop up, but it's staying grounded and focused on the ultimate purpose that allows me to continue to forge ahead.
So it's interesting. You've mentioned a couple times. You mentioned, when I asked you what you do, you basically said I change lives. And another point you mentioned, you want to transform the universe.
Yep.
And so you've got big goals, big, scary, hairy, audacious goals. Yes. And another thing you just mentioned is culture. So I have there's a lot of coaches listening. There's a lot of leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, people who manage other people listening. Is culture important? I mean, you referred to the culture you have in your gym there. Is that important?
Man, culture's king. Culture is absolutely imperative. Matter of fact, I always say culture before cash. So some people focused are very money centric or financial centric. Like, hey, we all want to have profitable businesses, but I protect my culture to the nth degree because I believe it's the culture that's going to allow your team to grow. And when your team is happy, when your team is growing, and your culture is attractive, then people are going to be attracted. See, at Fitness Quest 10, what I do is I liken my culture to a lighthouse. And a lighthouse, the brighter the light shines out into your community or into the universe, then the more, quote, lost ships that will be attracted to the culture. So if I'm positive, if I'm strong, if I'm successful, if I am compassionate and empathetic and I'm all who I want to be and my team is that way, then it's going to attract people that need that in their lives. So to me, culture is everything. And, that got us through tough times. You talk about, tough times in adversity. 2008, 2009, when the economy crashed, for us, it was all about focusing on culture. And my message at that time was, hey, I understand some of you are having financial difficulties and you may have to sacrifice some discretionary income in other areas of your life, but you can't afford to not be working out, to be taking care of yourself in this very stressful time. And it's amazing, Jim, that during that time we had double-digit growth in one of the toughest economic times in our country.
Wow. And so for the listener who's saying, okay, I get it. I want to improve the culture in my organization or my team or in my classroom or whatever the case might be. Any tactics or any things that you do that might be helpful for the listeners?
Well, I think it starts
and
with
I know
you.
It can't be boiled down to just a couple of action items that they can do in the next day or so, but maybe any insights on that?
Yeah. Well, I think it starts with you. It starts with the person that wants to have a better culture. It's so easy to say, well, that's the boss's job or the owner's job or that person's job. To me, leadership and culture comes down to you. How are you going to influence your organization regardless of your title, regardless of your role within the organization? And where does that start? It starts with personal development. It starts with what are you reading? What are you listening to? The fact that you're listening to this podcast right now shows that, you're interested in personal growth and learning. And what I say here at Fitness Quest 10 to the folks that I coach is, you can only take a client on a journey as far as you've taken yourself. So maybe it's time to deepen your own journey. And the more time you spend on you with training, with eating right, with travel, with surrounding yourself with people that are going to enlighten you or empower you or inspire you, that's going to allow you to then grow. And the more you grow, the more your team can grow.
Yeah, that's interesting because, Jim Rohn talked about, he was a famous quote, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I actually take it a bit further than that. It's the sum total of all the content that you allow into your life. And that's the people, that's the podcast, that's the books, that's the self-talk. Right. And I call it the environment of excellence. And that's exactly what you're talking about there. And that's interesting. So, I mean, it's something that it starts with the individual and that replicates out into the organization.
Yeah, no doubt. I think, Jim, so many times it's just easy is to point fingers in an organization. And let's take, for example, and there are times even at Fitness Quest 10 when the culture always isn't exactly as I wanted. And I have that pulse of like, man, something doesn't feel right. And I think it's important from a leadership aspect is to really address the things that aren't going well head on. And I've learned a lot in studying leadership and now someone that teaches on leadership. It's really important to make sure that you protect your culture, but you have to set expectations. You have to provide feedback to your team. And a lot of leaders don't love giving feedback because you think that you might really upset the person when all people want positive or good constructive feedback. So we use the sandwich technique, right? You tell them what they're doing well, you tell them how they can improve, and then you always give an attaboy or attagirl at the end. And over time, if you can actually guide someone and facilitate the growth professionally and or personally, then this is going to help them be successful. And when they're successful, they're happy. When they're happy, you have a happy client or customer that obviously in turn is then going to positively impact the culture in your organization.
And Todd, you talked about the struggles going through the economic recession, and you talked about some of your challenges starting this thing out and growing it. I always ask my guests to share a moment of failure, something, because we look at a guy like you, and like I said, for the listener, you've got to go to Todd's website, todddurkin.com, and check it out because it's absolutely incredible. All the things you've done, all the things you've achieved, all the awards, all the articles and places where you've been published, et cetera. And we look at a guy like you and we go, okay, well, it was, everything he touches turns to gold. Everything is successful. Mm-hmm. Can you take us to a moment of failure?
Absolutely. I've got several of them. I'll just highlight maybe one or two. Sure. From a professional standpoint, Jim, one of the things I believe the fitness industry is going towards is the integration of more technology and innovation. And a couple of years ago, I really firmly believed that it was going to the point where, okay, I can only impact so many people in San Diego, and those that I touch, I'm going to leverage technology and create an app where anyone worldwide could train with me in a real live time. Now, this was before Facebook Live, and this was before some of the real time streaming services took place. So I created an app, and the app was designed so that for a very nominal fee, anyone could come and train with me at specific times, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and right through their phone or their iPad, they could do that. And my partner and I dumped a lot of money, time, effort into this project. As a matter of fact, it was over 6 figures that we invested in this app, and the app failed. Like the adoption rate 2 years ago, it never took off. And I'd have, a handful of people that were doing the workouts with me, and we marketed it. We did everything we could, and it just, after a while, we just had to cut our losses and say, you know what, we got to find another focus because it's not working. And it stunk because I still believe in that concept, and it's changed a lot in the last 2 years because of, again, the evolution of technology. But at that point in my career and life, I really believe that it was the right time. And you also have to be at the front side, I believe, of the technological boom. And I don't know if I was before my time or if it wasn't the exact right platform, but man, I sunk a lot of time and money into that, and it was a failure.
And it's interesting for the listener, we're talking to a guy who has created a lot of success, who has a big following, and is very successful in a lot of ways. And but failure still happens. So it's not just, for the listener, when you fail at something, it's not you, right? It's everybody fails. Even the great ones fail. So thanks for sharing that, Todd. I don't know if did you have another one you were going to mention?
Yeah. And before I do that, I say after 2 years of just investing that, it was time to cut my losses. And I think another thing that we can all learn is at some point, sometimes you just have to cut your losses and move on and shift your energy into something now that is moving your spirit and soul, that's going to allow you to, really get to where you want to go. And the second thing is more of a personal thing, Jim. And, when this failure may be one of the biggest failures of my life, because from the time I was age 5, I'm the youngest of 8 kids, 5 sisters, 2 brothers. I had a dream, and my dream growing up through high school and grade school back in New Jersey, all the way up to my college career at William & Mary, I wanted to play in the NFL. And I was a quarterback, and I got a college scholarship and had the opportunity to play. And my dream was to play in the NFL. But after college, it didn't go quite the way, or during college, my career didn't go exactly the way I wanted it. So I didn't get drafted. And I went overseas and I played football in Europe. And it was the circuitous route to the NFL, but I still had that dream. And I had the chance to play in the World Football League and be around some great people. And I still believed that dream was going to happen. And at the age of 25, as a quarterback over in Europe, I suffered a devastating back injury. And I herniated 3 discs, degenerative back disease, spinal stenosis, left me motionless on a football field in France. And from the time I was 5 to 25, I had one dream. It was to play in the NFL. And at that point in my life, when the doctor in French told me, "You have a back problem, the football career over," wow. It was a real shot to me, because I knew that dream was over. And for 20 years, I had worked at something, and I knew physically I would never be able to do that again. And that took the wind out of my sails. Like, that put me down this downward spiral where I had to do a lot of soul searching, deeper soul searching than I had ever done before. And it was a very, very pivotal time in my life.
Yeah, I imagine it was. I mean, your whole identity as athletes, a lot of times our identity is wrapped up in what we do. But you were able to walk through that, crawl through it maybe to start and finally get through that and create success in another part of your life.
Well, what happened is, and this is where I think people, when you look at failure, looking back, my back injury ended up being my biggest blessing. Because what happened is, as I did more soul searching, and I had a nurse come into my condo a couple times a day to shoot me up with painkillers, and it took me a month before I could start walking. It took me 2 months before I could actually fly back to the States and start rehabbing. Wow. That led me to then a producer who brought me to L.A., who I started training in L.A., and I went down this path to try to heal my own back pain. And I didn't want to have surgery. So for 5 years, literally for 5 years, I went to everyone that you could think of: chiropractors, osteopaths, physicians, energy healers, massage therapists, chiropractors, you name it. I tried it. And it was all because I wanted to try to heal my own back pain. And what I ultimately learned is that all that was a learning process for me. Despite already having a degree in kinesiology, massage therapy background, strength and conditioning, I was learning a hands-on techniques and approach that would not only heal my own back pain, but also allow me to someday implement what I had learned over a 5-year period. And now what I do, and for the past 17 years, that's exactly what I've been doing, is I've been using the techniques and the philosophies and methodologies that I learned in that 5-year healing period to, when I work with someone in pain, whether it be a high-level athlete or an executive, it allows me to then look back and say, wow, I would have never have wanted that to happen in my career or life. And that's been the biggest blessing in my life as well.
I hear that fairly often when people go through a tremendous setback, how, in hindsight, they look back on it and they see the value of it. So you just never know when your greatest setback can lead to your greatest comeback.
Right.
And so, Todd, now you've written another book called The Wow Book, 52 Ways to Motivate Your Mind, Inspire Your Soul, and Create Wow in Your Life. Tell us about the book. I mean, you're a gym owner. Why write a book? Why write a book?
Well, Because I'm a coach, and even though I have a gym, that's only part of what I do. As a coach, I try to transform bodies, minds, and spirits, right? And the book is my second book. The Impact Body Plan was my first book, and that's a 10-week workout program. But this book is about getting your mind right. It's about motivation. It's about inspiration. It's about trying to get your life to the point where you take ownership of your success and the results that you have. And I wanted to make it not just a fitness book, but also one where I have a lot of business stories in there, leadership stories, family stories. As a father and as a husband, I have a lot of stories in there about my kids and how I try to teach them life lessons as well. And I wrote it in a style that's very short chapters. So they're 2 or 3 page chapters, about 500 to 600 words per chapter, and there's always an action step. So every chapter, let's say there's one on love or on humility or faith or strong, whatever it may be, that there's always an action step on how you can be more of that today. And if you can win the day and you could be more of that mantra or that theme for the day, then you're going to have a better day. And when you win the day, 52 wins over the course of time or a year or a week, then great things are going to happen in your life.
Yeah, and so you're an author, you're a motivational speaker, you're a gym owner, and like you said, you're a father of 3. How do you make all of this happen? How do you get it all done?
You just make it happen. You dream big and you set goals. And then I think for me, I'm very, very selective and specific on how I spend my time and who I spend it with.
Talk about that more.
Well, I actually set up rules for my life, and I literally have 13 commandments that I use. And you probably don't want me to go through all of them, but I literally follow them, and I put them next to my computer. And when I'm
interested in hearing them, I think the listener might be too,
okay.
if you have them handy or if you're willing to share those.
Well, I always have them next to my computer because when I follow my best practices and my commandments and rules for living, I find that when I adhere to my best practices, then my life is better. And it takes uber discipline. It takes a lot of prioritizing your time. And a lot of it has to do with things like my early morning routine. But number one of my 13 commandments, I'll go through this quick. And if there's a couple that you want to pick apart, Jim, feel free. But the first one is go to bed before 11 o'clock every night. For me, it's trying to get 7 hours of sleep and get 2 massages a month. That's number one. Number 2 is stick to my diet and avoid caffeine after 12 noon. No more than 2 beers per month. So that's a rule of mine. It's like, hey, I'll have a beer every now and then, but not 2 beers a week or a day. People always have, are you sure about that? Number 3 is I work out for at least 45 minutes first thing every morning. I'm a morning guy. It gets my brain chemistry right. So I have a minimum of 10 minutes quiet time, and I listen to a podcast for at least 30 minutes during that time. Number 4, and this is a big one, I don't turn on the phone until after I'm done with my morning routine. I don't check my email. I don't check Instagram, Facebook, any of my social media. So when I say I don't turn on my phone, I'm not going into business mode until I am done with that routine. Why? Because I want to dominate the day instead of the day dominating me. So I'm not going to allow any emails, text, social media to come through, and I have to start feeling like I have to get back to that person. Number 5 is the power of one. Who's that one person going to be today? So when I journal and I take my prayer time in the morning, Jim, I think of who am I going to be dealing with today? Like for today, as we record this, it was like, hey, I'm gonna dive into Jim Harsha on everything I do today. I'm going to put my 100% focus and energy into this one man. So the power of one, every single day I set an intention on who am I going to pour into for that day. Now, granted, we deal with dozens or hundreds of people a day, but maybe there's someone that needs special energy, intention, or prayer, and that's intentionality. And I do that as part of my commandments. Number 6 is do not swear. Use words and vocabulary that only increase the positive frequency in a room. And again, guys, I'm not perfect, but this is a rule of mine. I just try to follow this and use good words, because I believe that your thoughts become your words become your flesh become your actions become your character, and your character becomes your legacy. So I try to have good thoughts come in. I try to use the right language that's going to allow me to operate at my best self. Number 7 is win the day. And that's just a mentality I've had for a long time. I actually write about it in the WOW book, and actually my first book, The Impact Body Plan, too. I will be in control with how I choose to spend my time, who I spend it with, and what I spend my time doing. So win the day is 7. 8 of my 13 is do my W lags every Sunday night for the week. Now, my W lags are it's a 20-minute period I take every Sunday where I look back over the last week and I look at my top wins, my top losses from the past week, and my aha moments from the past week. And the aha moments are sometimes failures or adversities, or sometimes a conversation I had with someone, a random person, but it's an aha moment. And then I set my goals for this upcoming week. Like, what are the big 5 things I must do this week to have a winning week? Number 9 is I write every day for at least 30 minutes. For me, writing moves my soul. One of the reasons why I wrote the book, like you said, well, you're a gym owner, why you write a book, is for me, I learned writing when I was in 7th grade, 8th grade from my father. And now for me, it's cathartic. When I put words on paper, I get emotional, I get fired up, I get excited, I get motivated. So that's why I blog, or I go on my Facebook, or I'm writing a book. I try to write for at least 30 minutes every day. Number 10, positive interactions and communication with all people I interact with. And that means live, online, or social media. So I'm not going to engage in confrontation with anyone. I don't have the time to sit there and heckle with a hater. Do I have haters? Absolutely. Everyone has haters. As a matter of fact, someone once told me, until you get haters, you got to dream bigger. You got to take more action. So I'm not going to engage in them. So I'm going to try to keep it positive with all I do. Number 11, I will motivate, inspire, and create impact to 10 million men and women in my life. Don't wait. Do it now. So when I read these things, like, that fires me up. I'm going to motivate, inspire, and create impact at 10 million people. I'm going to get out of bed and I'm going to go do it. And that allows me to know that this is a commandment. Like, I'm going to hold true to that. Number 12 is I will live my life guided by purpose and passion. I will not be steered by jealousy, gossip, temptation, or energy vampires. Let the BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals, and decree, motivate, and inspire me to do my absolute best work. That's number 12 of 13. And the last one of my 13 commandments and rules for living is to understand that I cannot and will not please everyone, and that I will be judged, and that's okay. I need to focus on living each and every day where I have zero guilt with how I conducted myself, with what I said or did, the decisions I made, or any of my actions, knowing that I did my absolute best to be real, genuine, caring, and the best father, husband, leader, trainer, coach, and human being that I could possibly be. So wow, those are my 13 commandments, and I've never shared them like on a podcast before, but you
well, I appreciate you doing that. Yeah, I put you on the spot.
Well, you know what? Just so I can reiterate to our listeners today is, like, please don't judge me on my commandments. What's important is that you write your rules for living. And maybe you have 5 or 7 or 10, and it took me a few hours, and I've changed and edited them several times, but I put them wherever I go. I have them, and I know them in my head. But when I read them every day, I'm more likely to fulfill those. And when I'm doing those, then I know I'm my best self. And when you ask, well, how do you achieve success and what I strive for, significance, I know that if I'm following my commandments, I'm more likely to come across the people that are going to help me achieve what I want in my life, and I'm living life on my terms and on my purpose, and hence I could give back even more.
Wow, that stuff is pure gold, Todd. And for the listener, I have the action plan from every one of these episodes. And for the listener, go to jimharshajr.com/action, and I'm going to have all those documented, listed out if you want to print it out or take those and review those and pick and choose what you might like to make your own commandments. Rules for life. Great, Todd. That is just that's pure gold. I appreciate that.
No, Jim, thanks for asking. And I end that with a quote, by the way, in the end, which you'll probably like, because it's a Warren Buffett quote. And it says, success is simple once you accept how hard it is. So those aren't those aren't simple things to do. Like some of them, it takes a lot of discipline to every day get up and stick to your morning routine or to eat the right types of food. Like a lot of times your willpower, gets weak or you mess up and it takes you down the wrong road. Then if that's you today, then get up and get moving and get back to your best practices. So success is simple once you accept how hard it is.
Yeah. I mean, those are simple things, but they're not easy. They're hard to do. So that's
exactly right.
It's great. That's how it works. I mean, people are trying to find shortcuts, and sure, there's best practices and whatnot, but there's no shortcut. Everybody, that's been said many, many times. So hard work, put one foot in front of the other, take action, and things begin to happen.
Right.
So Todd, if you could give the listener one action item in the next 24 to 48 hours, something they can use right away, some kind of action item they can do, something practical and actionable that they can do to start moving towards their goals, what would that be?
That would be get your mind right. It would mean snap your band, put a rubber band around your wrist, snap it, get your mind right, and then go work out. I just think so much happens when you work out. And I don't care when you say work out, it might mean a walk. It might mean a jog for 15, 20 minutes. It might mean taking the dog out. It might mean you drop down and do 25 push-ups or 25 body weight squats. But my friends, I promise you, when you go work out, whether it be around the neighborhood, in your gym, in the garage, wherever you want to work out, just get back into the routine of training again, because when you do that, you're going to want to eat better. And then when you have your health, you have 1,000 dreams. It is said that he or she who has his health has 1,000 dreams, and he or she who does not has one. It's to get your health.
Yeah.
So, man, how do you get your mind right? You go train, you get your nutrition dialed in, and then all of a sudden life starts working again. You follow your commandments, and you reach the success that you want despite facing adversity and failure along the way. You just keep fighting, man.
Todd, if you could go back in time and talk to your 20-year-old self, if you could sit across the table talking to your 20-year-old self, looking eye to eye, and you could offer one piece of advice to your 20-year-old self, what would that be?
Man. The 20-year-old self, what I would tell my 20-year-old self is, don't worry about what everyone else thinks. Focus on what makes you happy. I think about 20, I was a junior in college, and I was a government major. And I was a government major because I wanted to be the president of the United States. And I wanted to be the president because I thought that then everyone would be happy and my father would be happy. And then I didn't love studying government. So I switched to business, and I switched to business because I could make more money. I thought if I had a business major, it would, set me up for more success, but I wasn't happy. And I was doing these different majors because I thought it would make other people happy, including my family. And when I finally got some great advice from my oldest sister, who said to follow your gut, follow your intuition. What do you love studying? And I said, well, I love this kinesiology class. I love exercise science. But I heard this voice in my head is like, well, what are you going to do with that? And I eventually did listen to my intuition and gut. And as a junior in college, I changed my major to kinesiology. And it was because at that point, I chose to say, this is what I believe is going to make me happy. I have no idea how my journey is going to go. I have no idea what I'm going to do with my life. But it's okay because I'm living under my terms, and I'm not going to guide my decisions based on what everyone else thinks versus what truly is going to make me most happy. And that's the advice I'd give to my 20-year-old self is don't worry about what everyone else thinks, and don't take myself as seriously. Like laugh more, smile more, and always studying and playing sports is like enjoy the process. And even now I remind myself is, man, make sure you're enjoying the journey, make sure you're enjoying the ride. So whether you're 20, you're 40, you're 80, is to enjoy the process.
Great advice, Todd. I appreciate that. Thanks for coming on the show. Take a minute to promote yourself, if you could. Tell the listener where they can find you, follow you, buy your book, etc.
Well, I think the best place is, you can check out ToddDurkin.com. But every Monday, Jim, I do this thing called the Dose of Durkin. And I text it out or email it out. Just go to doseofdurkin.com. And you could hop in. And I do these crazy, wacky videos. It's the ones I send my pro athletes and some of my clients to get their minds right. And you'll see a little inkling of that. So if you're struggling with motivation or inspiration or even some know-how on your own performance, whether it be in the boardroom or in the gym, is the Dose of Durkin is a great way for you to get involved with just getting more motivated. And we've got a lot of things going on. If I'm in your area, come check us out. I'm on the road about 40 times a year at different conferences and events and speaking on that stuff. And hey, if you love great reading, check out my book, The Wow Book. It's very, very short as far as the chapters are concerned. It's very digestible. You can read it with your kids. You can share it with your colleagues. But it's a fun book. It's action oriented, and I truly believe it's going to help you get more motivated and more inspired as well.
That's great. So it's kid friendly. I always like books like that I can read with my kids.
Oh, absolutely. As a matter of fact, I share a lot of stories about my kids and some of the lessons I've taught them. So my kids, sometimes we go to bed reading a chapter out of the Wow book. And like, for example, one's called Candy and Willpower, where one of my kids gave up candy for an entire year once.
Wow. Based
on a bet. And it was about willpower, about, hey, if we want to do anything in life, if you choose to do it and you surround yourself with people that are going to support your dream, then you can do whatever you want. So those are kind of the impetuses of each of the chapters. It's not just on health and fitness. It's on motivation. It's on parenting. It's on business and leadership. It's about life. It's about purpose. It's about friendship. And, I start off right when chapter 1 with my favorite chapter. It's on time, and it's about my father. And it's my favorite chapter. It gets me emotional every time, but it's a great book, The Wow Book. 52 ways to motivate your mind, inspire your soul, and create wow in your life.
Excellent. And for the listener, I will have links to the book and everything else he talked about here, a bunch of resources. I'm going to have the 13 commandments, everything in the action plan. Go to jimharshajr.com/action. Todd, thanks so much for making time to come on the show.
Jim, thank you, and keep up the great work, man. I love listening to your podcast also.
Thank you. And for the listener, until next time, take the time to get clear on your goals and embrace failure as a stepping stone on your path to success.